The Financial Investigations Division, FID, is mum this afternoon following allegations it told the Integrity Commission it had found no cause for concern, having reviewed the statutory declarations of Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. The Integrity Commission had referred the explosive matter to the FID in 2024, having tabled a report in Parliament which raised questions about the Prime Minister's financial affairs. But when Nationwide News sought answers under the Access to Information Act, the Dennis Chung-led division refused the request. Ricardo Brooks reports.
Nationwide News first wrote to the Financial Investigation Division on January 7, seeking to know whether it had responded to the Integrity Commission. If it had, when was the response provided, and what was the nature of the response provided? Our news center also sought access to all documents related to the referral, which were handled by the FID, and the minutes of any meetings at which the referral was discussed. Today, January 26, the FID's Chief Technical Director Dennis Chung acknowledged the request. Shortly thereafter, the division's Access to Information Officer Garth Williams denied the request. Williams told our news center that the FID had determined that the information being sought could not be disclosed. According to the FID, its reading of the ATI Act meant it allows access to official documents that are administrative in nature. The FID did not cite any specific section of the Act that requires requested documents to be administrative in nature, but it said the information being requested by our news center related to investigative processes and outcomes. It says it had determined that information falls outside the scope of administrative records contemplated by the Act. The division further stated that the material requested constitutes exempt documents and/or exempt matter within the meaning of the Act. It noted in particular that the information relates to law enforcement matters and that disclosure would or could reasonably be expected to compromise investigative functions. In outlining its reasons, the FID warned that release of the information could disclose or enable the identification of confidential sources or reveal lawful methods and procedures used to prevent, detect, or investigate possible breaches of the law. Such disclosure, the agency said, would prejudice the effectiveness of those methods. Additionally, the FID indicated that disclosure could prejudice the conduct of an ongoing investigation into a breach or possible breach of the law, or result in the unreasonable disclosure of information relating to the personal affairs of persons under investigation. It should be noted that the Integrity Commission itself advised Parliament in its most recent annual report that its investigation into the Prime Minister's finances were at an end. Well-placed sources have told our news center that the FID has responded to the Integrity Commission and advised that it found no cause for concern. Our news center has now submitted an access to information request to the Integrity Commission, seeking clarity on the matter. That request has not yet been acknowledged. Ricardo Brooks for Nationwide News.
Jamaica's debt is expected to return to the 60% of gross domestic product GDP target by 2035. That's according to an assessment conducted by the International Monetary Fund, IMF. In a release last week, the fund says it expects Jamaica's debt to peak at 68% this fiscal year before returning to a downward trajectory as of 2026. Siobhan Campbell tells us more.
Jamaica was on track to achieve the significant milestone of a debt-to-GDP ratio of 60% this fiscal year. But as a result of Hurricane Melissa, the International Monetary Fund's assessment sees the country ending the financial year at 68% of GDP. The assessment says following Hurricane Melissa, under current policies, public debt is projected to rise in the near term to accommodate reconstruction spending before declining modestly over the medium term. The 68% is a sharp increase of roughly 6 percentage points compared to the 62% registered for the last fiscal year. The government has suspended the country's fiscal rules, which mandated that Jamaica hit the 60% target by 2030. Now, debt is expected to fall to 65% of GDP by the end of the next fiscal year. Projections are for it to remain in that range until 2031. At that point, the IMF believes debt will then continue its downward decline reaching 58% of GDP in 2035. Meanwhile, the IMF expects the Jamaican economy to return to growth in 2027. The fund anticipates that by the end of the current fiscal year, the Jamaican economy will decline by as much as 5%. Growth is also expected to be flat for the next fiscal year. In 2027, the IMF projects recovery growth of 3%. For 2028, a further 2% growth is anticipated, with 1.5% for the years beyond. Siobhan Campbell for Nationwide News.
Meanwhile, the IMF says the government intends to reduce its primary surplus target to 1.7% of GDP for the current fiscal year. This is a significant reduction from the 5.1% previously announced in the interim fiscal policy paper in December. According to the fund, the government will then reduce the target further to near 0% in the following financial year. The IMF says this will better allow the authorities to respond to the hurricane shock. A primary surplus target is the specific, planned amount by which a government's total revenue exceeds its non-interest expenditures. This is usually set to ensure funds are available for debt repayment. Jamaica's primary surplus target has fallen over the years, coming from a high of 8% at the start of its economic reform program with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF.
The three former senior executives of collapsed investment firm Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL, will return to court on April 26. The trio, SSL's founder Hugh Croskery, his daughter Sarah Meany, and the company's former chief executive officer Zachary Harding, appeared in court on Monday. They are charged with breaches of the Bank of Jamaica Act, Securities Act, and Banking Services Act. Croskery and Meany are facing additional charges of breaching Jamaica's Larceny Act. This is in relation to the ongoing investigation into the multi-billion-dollar fraud investigation at SSL. In court on Monday, their case was formally transferred from the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court to the Supreme Court. Their bail was also extended. SSL collapsed in January 2024 amid allegations of a multi-billion-dollar fraud involving Sprint legend Usain Bolt and approximately 200 other victims.
Now, 4 men have been charged with assaulting 2 policemen in Portmore St. Catherine on Sunday. They're 34-year-old Corey Burke, 38-year-old Kironi Moffat, 32-year-old Cavell Christie, and 43-year-old Conroy Green. They've been charged with assaulting the police, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and indecent language. It's reported that the men were occupants in a motor vehicle that was blocking an entrance, causing a disturbance during a football match. Police responded and instructed the driver to move the vehicle, but he refused. The men exited the vehicle, behaved disorderly, and used indecent language towards the police. When the police attempted to arrest them, the 4 men resisted and physically attacked 2 police personnel.
Tribute